Hello, I'm Judy Stiles. Thank you for joining us this week on Newsmakers. Well, the new semester is well underway at Missouri Southern, and today I have the honor of visiting with our president, Missouri Southern President, Dr. Dean Van Galen. Thank you for being here today.
Thanks, Judy. It's great to be with you. Appreciate it.
You've been here at Missouri Southern and for a couple of months now. I had a chance to really see a lot. Tell me your reaction if somebody says, how have the first couple of months gone at Missouri Southern?
Yeah, it's been really wonderful. I've met so many people. I've learned about both the campus and the community. It's week 7 or 8. Certainly have a great deal more to learn, but it's felt like such a warm welcome, both for Mary and myself, and I'm just delighted to be here. It's been great.
Great. Was there any one thing that stands out that has impressed you the most since you've been here?
You know, there are many, but I think it's the sense of community that exists on our campus and also in the broader community. Mm-hmm. I've really been impressed with how warm people are, how they have a deep belief in the value of Missouri Southern and higher education. And I'm just overwhelmed by the welcome that I've been experiencing, both Mary and I. So that has stood out for us.
Great. Well, I'd like to take a little bit of time for people today to give a little bit of background. You've been working in academia, but also you have a distinction of being a first-generational college student, which really a lot of our students can relate to that.
Yeah, that's true. About 60% of Missouri Southern students are first-generation college students. So I grew up in a small town in Wisconsin. Both of my parents were factory workers. Neither of them completed high school. And I've experienced and seen in many other students the difference in education can make. So I had the opportunity to go on to college. I think like many of our students, I didn't really know what college was. It was challenging to navigate college. And my parents were supportive, but they didn't have the experience to really help. And over the years, I've seen many students from a first-generation background succeed with the support of great faculty and staff. And I think that's part of the value of a Missouri Southern. We do take students who may not have a lot of experience and their families in higher education and add tremendous value. So, sometimes I like to say that a Missouri Southern adds more value to our students than a Harvard or a Yale, if you think about where they come from and the difference that we can make in their lives.
Now, is there someone or something that stands out in your mind? Obviously, going to college was a new experience that really influenced you. Did you have a mentor or somebody you said, this really is something I want?
You know, I did. So I started out as a optometry major. I wanted to be an eye doctor. And my sophomore year, I had a tremendous chemistry professor, Dr. Ed Drexler, who inspired me. And, sometimes we look back in our lives and we realize that really changed the path of my life. So I wanted to be a chemistry professor. I didn't really know how to go about that, but through a lot of mentorship and support, that's the path that I pursued. And I like to ask our students, and really all of us, to think about, if you were to make a list of the 5 or 10 people who've most influenced your life, I think for many of us, educators would be on that list. And here I know that we have wonderful faculty and staff. And I always like to talk to them about that as well, to encourage them, to make them realize the difference they're making in our students' lives.
So that's saying that an educator or a teacher really touches a life forever. You've experienced that
Absolutely.
firsthand.
Yes.
So you went on from your undergraduate years and, of course, then the graduate school and going on, continuing to study. That love for learning must have been strong at that time.
It really was. I went to graduate school at Kansas State, so spent some time in this part of the country, I guess. Did postdoctoral research at Cal Berkeley and then started teaching chemistry at Truman State up in Kirksville. So Mary and I actually have lived in Missouri 16 years in an earlier chapter of our lives. But you're right, education has been a huge driver and really it's something that I've devoted my life to, that I care deeply about.
The role of a professor when you were teaching at Truman State, where you were working with the students, what did you enjoy on that aspect of being in the classroom?
So I loved teaching, and from time to time I still teach a course. There's really nothing better than that face-to-face experience with students. And looking back, it's interesting. One of the faculty at Missouri Southern, I won't name a name, but was one of my students when I was teaching at Truman in chemistry. And so you maintain some of these connections throughout your life. And, that's what goes on here every day. And sometimes it's challenging to see that if you're a faculty member or a student. But looking back, you see the impact of higher education on the development of young people, on their future in terms of being citizens, in terms of their career prospects. And again, what we do is change the course of students' lives.
Now, you were recognized about Truman State for Educator of the Year and also statewide recognition. What would you say are some of the key points if you're advising some of the younger professors, maybe are coming to campus, staff members? What do you say the key to success is to be a successful professor or instructor?
Well, that's a big a big question, but for me, to do the role well, to be a professor, it takes a lot of commitment, and I think providing students with a high level of support, but also challenging them. And I think those two, challenge and support, go together to create a great educational experience for students. So those are some of the keys for me, at least.
Right. Well, then you made a transition to administrative roles. That opportunity came along at Truman State?
Yes, so I became Vice President for Advancement, which is external relations, fundraising, alumni relations, governmental relations. So that was a bit of a strange transition from a chemistry professor.
From the classroom, right?
Yes, but one I really enjoyed because it was an opportunity to kind of see the university from an entirely different perspective. And I enjoy building relationships, working with people, and that's certainly part of my job here at Missouri Southern as well.
And from there, you went on to other universities, and you come to Missouri Southern from Wisconsin, right?
Yes, the last 11 years I was Chancellor of the University of Wisconsin in River Falls, which is in western Wisconsin near the Twin Cities. It's something I certainly enjoyed, but Missouri Southern has been on my radar for a long time, in part because of the international theme to the mission at Missouri Southern. I think that has really brought this university notoriety, and it's a really area that I care deeply about. And this just seemed like a great opportunity and a very good fit.
So Missouri Southern being on your radar, looking at it for some time, the school has been noticed around the country, around the region.
Yes, very much. And I think, again, part of that is the international mission. And for me, that fit of serving students, especially first-generation college students, having great faculty who are here primarily to educate and to teach, and then also this region. So Mary and I lived in Kirksville, as I mentioned, for many years, but we knew about Joplin as a growing dynamic region. We actually took our daughter here to have tubes put in her ears by Dr. Larry McIntyre in 1991, and it turns out he's a familiar name to many people in this area. So we knew that this would be a great place to work and live, and we're just happy to be here.
Right. Well, looking at the role of education, and you mentioned the international mission of Missouri Southern, with the opportunities for travel abroad, something that you've also had in your career.
Yes, very much. So when I was on the faculty at Truman, I developed a study abroad course to Norway. It was an environmental science course, and on I think it was 6 different occasions, I brought a group of 8 chemistry and biology students to Norway for 3 weeks. And it was amazing to see the impact of that experience on students. And it's an element of education I believe in very deeply. In my time at River Falls, I developed, co-taught a study abroad course to Norway and Iceland, which actually was scheduled to go there in May, but of course COVID ended that. But already during my time here, I know there's a deep commitment to international education, in many ways providing students opportunity to study abroad, which really gives them a new perspective in so many ways, bringing international students to the Missouri Southern campus, and then other elements such as the themed semester. And so I'm anxious to learn more about what's going on here, but also to try to build upon that strength at Missouri Southern.
So through Missouri Southern's different aspects of the international mission that can touch the students, whether they can travel abroad or something's coming here to campus for them.
Absolutely, yes.
Tying that together. You've seen then probably some personal examples of a student, that wow moment when they've taken that trip abroad or they've learned something they didn't know.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we learn a great deal by being in a different environment, getting to know people different from us in many ways. There's really nothing like that type of experience. And it's not that you need to go abroad to have those types of experiences, but I do believe part of a college education is to, challenge a bit our own background and beliefs. And that doesn't mean that we have to change our beliefs by any means, but that's part of the growth process. And I think international education is one way to do that.
Right. Well, higher education has probably changed tremendously even in your career as you've seen things change. Speaking in broader terms, before we talk specific Missouri Southern, how have you seen the whole field of higher education evolve, or some of the key points that you've seen?
I think it's a number of ways. In terms of teaching and learning, I think higher ed has evolved from more of a lecture format in the classrooms to more of active learning.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we've done, based on research, a better job of trying to engage students and not simply lecture to them all the time.
Right.
I think that's been a very positive development. I think, on another level, funding for higher education has changed significantly.
Right.
In the United States, higher ed is funded primarily by the states. Now, the federal government does provide financial aid, Pell Grants, those types of levels of support. But state funding, relatively speaking, has declined, and then tuition has increased. So that has created some challenges for public higher education everywhere. But that's something that we work with. We try to maintain affordability, especially at Missouri Southern, given the students that we serve. So that said, I believe that higher education, post-secondary, has never been more important. If you look at the data in terms of the outcomes of higher education, they're really pretty amazing. If you look at from an economic point of view, lifetime earnings are significantly higher the more education you obtain. Unemployment is lower with higher levels of education. And then there's some really interesting kind of citizenship elements. The more education you have, the more likely you are to volunteer, to vote. And so there are a lot of impacts of education. I always like to say this, so when I talk about that, education doesn't make a person a better person per se. My parents didn't complete high school, and they lived a very impactful life and were wonderful people. But the point is there are a lot of values that are added by pursuing and completing education. And again, it impacts individuals, and it also impacts our society.
Right, so the community as well benefiting from that.
Yes.
Right. Well, tying into community, I know that you have spent some of your time here the first couple of months getting to know the community. And you said you knew about Joplin and so forth, but your feelings about, being able to go out and meet the people in the community and just get their feedback.
Yeah, it's been a whirlwind, but really wonderful. So I've had the chance to visit with many groups, from CEOs to school superintendents, supporters of the university, alumni. Probably my favorite activity has been hometown tours. Right. So I've had the chance to visit a number of cities or communities around Joplin and Joplin itself with students. So I go out there often with Mary with a current student who shows me their hometown. So I've been to Carthage, for example, and I've seen the courthouse, learned about kind of that limestone and marble history to Carthage, and beautiful place. Been over to Carl Junction, went to Randy's Drive-In to have a Bulldog Shake over there. A couple students brought me to downtown Joplin. So I've enjoyed that as a way to learn about the region, but also to connect with some of our students. And they've been amazing. They speak often about the great job that our faculty and staff do. They're very delighted with their Missouri Southern education. So I've done many things the first couple of months, but I suppose that would be my favorite.
So going beyond the official visits to get to meet with the students, kind of see what their perspective is of the community, and tying that together really makes a difference. Are you you had an ice cream social, or we had a chance to meet with the students? So getting to know the students continues to be high on your list of.
It really is, and in the end, that's why we're here. And I think we should never forget that. I'm very interested in how do we enhance the student experience even more, and I think that connection. For me, at a leadership level and a personal level, is very important. Leaders make many decisions that impact the university, such as ours in many ways, but in the end, one always have to remember what is the impact on our students.
The ultimate goal is the students and getting them to succeed.
Indeed.
And move further. Well, I know that you and the leadership of the university have had to deal with some challenges. Of course, we talked about COVID coming in at this time and resulting budget challenges. So you have to have a good team of leaders to work with and a board of governors, and really that teamwork in that aspect as well.
Yeah, that's a great point. The board of governors, as I went through the interview process, I was thoroughly impressed with how they function as a group and as individuals. They've been very supportive. They care deeply about Missouri Southern, so that is a real positive. there are many leaders across campus. I have a leadership team, the president's cabinet,
Right.
but leaders really are everywhere in the organization, and people have pulled together in wonderful ways to address both COVID-19 and the resulting budget challenges. It has been a difficult couple of months here at the university. COVID-19, of course, is something that we're all dealing with, including across higher education. I think we've done a very good job of preparing for the semester, and we're off to a good start at this point. And then there have been significant budget challenges as well, both in terms of state withholdings to our budget and an anticipated enrollment drop related to COVID-19. But people have pulled together really well, and I'm very appreciative of that. Usually when you kind of come into a new position, a new environment, it takes time to build relationships and trust. And we've had to make some very difficult decisions very quickly.
Right.
And people have been patient and understanding, and that's something I appreciate very much.
Well, I know people in the community as a whole, as they're watching, and they may not attend Southern, but they know that, well, Missouri Southern came back to campus and their students are here. Did you feel that first week of school that the students really liked coming back, or you had that appreciation that we're not at home anymore?
They really did. And I had a chance, as others did the first day and the first week, to talk to many students. By and large, they are thrilled to be back on campus. As you know, we have a mask requirement and have many safety measures in place on campus. And what I heard was, we don't mind doing that at all. We understand the importance. We're just happy to be back and be with our peers, with our faculty. And I would add that our faculty have done a great job. They're in a challenging situation, really, as K through 12 teachers are as well. And the first week or so, it's gone very well. And I just am amazed at how everyone has pulled together. The energy on campus has been very high after 5 months, right, of not having students on the campus. So we're off to a great start.
And people being able to adapt, I guess, is one thing that you've probably seen, that it's not the way it used to be. We have to adapt and be able to adapt if we have to in the future.
Absolutely. Well, I'll tell you a story. Just before classes began, I was walking across the oval in front of the Billingsley Student Center, and one of our students, Gawaka Burks, I learned was his name, just sprinted across the oval, wanted to say hello, meet me, and he was so excited to come back. And he said, basically, this COVID-19, we're going to get through it. We're going to have a great semester. The optimism that he displayed was just inspiring. And I think a lot of our students feel that way right now.
Kind of reassuring to everyone that we're going to make it.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Now, the budget challenges are something that we have to deal with this year, and it's perhaps in the future for a little bit as well. The university had to make some tough choices.
Yes. Certainly we, primarily due to state budget reductions, restrictions, and then tuition projections, there were some pretty significant budget cuts this year, including furloughs for most of our employees. Reductions in operating budgets. And we're really in an unprecedented time. So there's a lot of uncertainty. What will happen with COVID-19? What will happen with the economy, the state budget, enrollment, all of this. So I think, like many organizations, we're doing the best based on what we know. We know we'll need to adjust. That said, I'm optimistic and hopeful for the future of Missouri Southern, no doubt about it.
So that's something you continue to monitor.
Absolutely.
We hear a lot about the term open communication, and so working with the students, the faculty, the staff, all the different constituents. Explain what that definition might mean for you when somebody says, well, what does open communication mean?
Communication is always critical. I think it's especially important during challenging times that we're in right now. So to me, communication is two-way. So it's not only talking or emailing, it's also listening. We've had a series of town hall meetings, one focused on budget, one on COVID-19, and I've had and will continue to have a number of listening sessions to connect with people, to listen, to learn. And I think that's really important, especially in these times. As the semester progresses, we'll undoubtedly face some challenges related to COVID-19. We don't know what that will look like, but I think it's really important to communicate in a timely manner. So, for example, on a campus, people hear the news ideally quickly and from the right source so that it's accurate and they feel they can kind of trust their leadership. So again, always important, probably never more important than right now.
In today's world of social media and the rumors that come from it, you need to make sure the official source is giving you the information.
Exactly, yes.
And tying everything together along those lines. Well, despite all the challenges, the work going on in the classrooms, the academic side of things, there's new programs being discussed and developed, new opportunities for students.
Yes, and we're looking to the future, and that's something that this year we'll work on. One of the perspectives I have is we have to get through this year. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be different. But at the same time, we have to look to the university's future. We have a strategic plan that runs through the year 2023. One of the focal points is enrollment, both in terms of new students, but also the retention and success of our current students. That's going to be critical. But over the next few months, I really want to do more listening and learning with our faculty, staff, and then also in the community and with business leaders. The connection between Missouri Southern and Joplin and the four states area is very strong, and people value the university in part because of that connection. So I'd like to learn about and think about how can this university even be more connected to the region? How can we be responsive to the needs by developing talent, by partnering with businesses, nonprofits, other organizations. And, the connection is something that is very strong and special here, and it's something I want to build upon.
So feeling that those connections will help strengthen that community, you say town and gown tie, the
Yes.
ties of the region for the school.
Absolutely.
Well, community leaders, they're talking about hiring graduates, they're putting the people to work that we graduate from Missouri Southern, I'm sure have a vested interest in what we're doing here.
Yes, they do very much. And, and sometimes it's in specific fields, whether it be healthcare or business. But also, when I talk to CEOs, HR managers, they want graduates who are also well-rounded, who can think critically, who can communicate well, who can work with others, including others different from themselves. So that is all part of what is important in a college education. So it's both specific skills or knowledge, often connected to the major, but it's also that type of education that includes history and other areas that kind of rounds out an individual and helps them to progress over their career.
Well, earlier you had some words for perhaps advice for faculty. What would you say to students? That are, your words of advice to them. If you could, I know you have the freshman convocation where you talk to the incoming students, but students in general. What does it take to succeed, or what would you tell them? Remember, try to do this.
Well, I think, there are a number of thoughts on that. First, work hard, and I guess I'm just not afraid to say that it takes effort and commitment to succeed in education and achieve a college degree. Get involved, be engaged in the classroom and beyond the classroom. So research tells us that the more students are involved in student organizations, undergraduate research, clubs, other activities, the more likely they are to be retained and to graduate. And so that connection is very important. When you're a new student on a college campus, it can be difficult because you're in a new environment.
It's intimidating for many people.
Exactly. And it takes some time. So the other message I have to our new students is be a little patient. There'll be some bumps along the way. Missouri Southern is a place that wants you to succeed, and people are here to help. So reach out, let us help you, be patient, and together we'll get through this.
So the resources are there, which is important for them to know.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the strengths of Missouri Southern. The faculty and staff here care about students. They want to connect with them. They want to help them succeed.
And you mentioned that, obviously we have to get through the current semester, the challenges that we face, but long-range goals, you have some ideas in mind to help make Missouri Southern stronger. And that goes back to the
Yeah, absolutely. And, we have a strategic plan, but working on that, doing a lot of listening. I see a great deal of potential in Missouri Southern. It's a strong university. It's in a very dynamic part of the state and the four-state region. So I'm optimistic.
No, you will have the opportunity, I'm sure, to visit Jefferson City when that time comes, to meet the lawmakers, and when they'll ask you what makes Missouri Southern special. You've had a chance to be there. What would you be telling the lawmakers, the people who I guess ultimately decide the budget for things?
Well, I did have a chance to meet with our local legislative delegation, and that was a nice initial visit. They're very supportive. But I would argue that this is a very high quality university that serves many first generation students, and in terms of development of community, citizens, and workforce, Missouri Southern is a great example of an institution that can impact all of those. We need to continue to be responsive to talent needs, workforce needs. As a public university, that's important. And I think I would communicate to them, and I do, this is what I'd call the people's university, right? The citizens of Missouri have invested and are investing in Missouri Southern. We need to own that, and they need to own us. So that's part of my goal. And I will be spending quite a bit of time in Jeff City.
Right. Well, Dr. Van Galen, I'd like to thank you very much for visiting with me today, having a chance for the members of the community and our viewers to hear from you today.
Thanks, Judy. I enjoyed it very much.
You're welcome. And I'd like to thank you, the viewers, for joining us this week on Newsmakers. I'm Judy Stiles. Hope you can join me again next week at the same time on the station. We'll see you then.